Everyone, welcome back to my channel Pato 2 Classroom. Today our topic is placental function. If you have seen my previous videos, the topic was about the structure of placenta. So this is the continuation of the previous videos, which is the placental function. So placenta, as you know, is the it is the endocrine organ which is responsible for maintaining the period of gestation or pregnancy. Okay, so basically the placental functions, there are various placental functions. So the first function is the very common one, which is your respiratory function. So the first is the respiratory function. As you know, during intrauterine life, that is when the fetus is inside the uterus, your fetal lungs are non-functional. It is in state of non-function, due to which what happens is the exchange of your gases, which is the oxygen, and the excretion of your carbon dioxide takes place with the help of your placenta. So this is your first function. Your oxygenated blood, which comes from the placenta through the maternal circulation, it is carried carried via the umbilical vein, and then to deliver the fetus. Okay, so your exchange of oxygen and your excretion of your carbon dioxide takes place with the help of process called diffusion, that is simple diffusion. What is diffusion? Diffusion is the process of or transfer of substances from area of higher concentration to your areas of lower concentration. So what is diffusion? By the process of diffusion, your oxygenated blood, which is coming from the umbilical vein, is transported to the fetal tissues by the process of simple diffusion, and by the same process your waste products such as your carbon dioxides are excreted from the fetal blood to the placenta with the help of your umbilical artery. So this was the first function of your respiratory function. So next comes is the excretory function. So the fetus, likewise any other humans, they also excrete certain materials. These materials or your waste products are urea, creatinine, etc. They are, which is produced by the fetus during the intrauterine life, are also excreted by the process of your simple diffusion. Okay, so here also the waste materials are excreted with the help of simple diffusion. So the third function is the nutritive function. So the fetal requires, like any other normal humans they also requires glucose, proteins, lipids, which is necessary for the growth and development of the fetus, right? So what happens here is your glucose is transported in the form of monosaccharides. Okay, the simplest form, your glucose, which is the main source of energy, is transported along the fetal tissues by the process known as facilitated diffusion. So what is facilitated diffusion? Facilitated diffusion is nothing but it is the diffusion of substances in this case is your glucose. Okay, so diffusion of substances through or with the help of with the help of transport proteins. With the help of transport proteins. What are transport proteins? These are the proteins which helps in the transportation of this glucose from the maternal blood to the fetal blood. Okay, so the transporter protein here is the GLUT1, which stands for glucose transport 1. Okay, so with the help of these proteins, your glucose or your monosaccharides are diffused or you can say transported from the maternal blood to the fetal blood or your fetal tissues. Okay, so this is how your your transportation of glucose takes place. Next comes is your proteins. So these are your proteins. So this was the first. So proteins are transported in its simplest form, that is your amino acids. So your proteins are transported in the form of your amino acids. Your let me tell you one thing. Your amino acids are their concentration. Amino acids concentration are more in fetus. Okay, their concentration, its concentration is more in fetus and less in mother. Okay, so here the concentration of amino acids are less in increased in fetus and it is less in mother. So here you can see there is a more of increased amount of concentration of amino acid in fetus, but still what we have to do, what happens is still the amino acids which is present in your mothers is still transported from the mother to the fetus, though the concentration of amino acids is less in mother, but still it is transported from the mother to the fetus. Okay, so these amino acids basically are essential amino acids. Essential amino acids. So these amino acids are transported by the process known as active transport. By the process known as active transport. Acha, why active transport? Because here what is happening here is the transportation of the proteins are taking place from the area of low concentration to the higher concentration, unlike the first where the diffusion was happening from the your transfer of substance was happening from the area of higher concentration to lower concentration. But in case of your active transport, what is happening, there is transport of amino acids from areas of low concentration to high concentration. So what happens is when substances or molecules which is transported from low to higher concentration, it requires energy. Okay, they requires energy in the form of your ATP. So this is done. So next come is your lipids. So your lipids are transported in the form of fats and triglycerides. Your lipids and triglycerides are directly transported from the mother to fetus. Okay, so because what happens here is the plasma membrane is basically made of your lipids and triglycerides only. So the transportation of these lipids and your triglycerides, your fats, is very easy. So this process is very easy. So next is your endocrine function or your enzymatic function. Okay, endocrine or enzymatic functions. So your placenta, what they does, they secrete some enzymes known as diamine oxidase. What that does, your placenta secretes enzyme known as diamine oxidase. What basically this diamine oxidase does is they inactivates histamine. Okay, they inactivate histamine. Histamines are, as you know, that histamines are the main reason behind the inflammatory reactions. Okay, so your second enzyme is your oxytocin. So what oxytocin does is they neutralize the action of oxytocin. Your oxytocin, it is the hormone which is responsible for the initiation of your uterine contractions. Okay, so your oxytocin is not required during the period of gestation. What happens if oxytocin is produced during the period of gestation? Obviously it will cause your uterine contractions, which is not needed. Okay, so what they does is your oxytocin they nullify or neutralize the action of oxytocin. So your third enzyme is your phospholipase A2. Okay, so this is your endocrine function, and fifth is your barrier function. So the last function is your barrier function. Though your placenta is considered as a barrier function, it don't necessarily provide protection against various microorganisms or various toxic substances or obnoxious substances. Okay, because the permeability of this barrier depends upon the size of the particle. So if the size of the particle or your size of the molecule is more than 500 daltons, then only it is not transferred along this barrier. But if it is less than 500 daltons, then it is easily transferred across the membrane, your placental barrier. Okay, so this is the reason why though your placenta is defined as placenta is considered as a barrier function, but they don't necessarily act as a protective barrier function. Okay, so because of this reason only your fetus suffers from infections such as, for example, your virus CMV, rubella, herpes zoster. Okay, these are some of the viruses which happens to cross the placental barrier. When it comes to bacterial infection, it could be your tubercle bacilli, treponema, okay, and your protozoan such as your malaria and toxoplasmosis.